In this video, I'm going to take a KMZ file that was created from a outside plant fiber field survey and go over some of the ways we can clean it up a bit to make it a little bit more simple for presenting back to our client. And we're going to also discuss how we can also host it online using Google My Maps or on Google Earth. First of all, to get started, let's take a look at the map as it was opened up and presented to me. So it's a well done field survey map of a fiber for a school district, and they have their own fiber plant. And basically, what we're doing here is just documenting it out to the schools and how it returns back to the head end. For first off, right off of the bat, it's a little confusing for someone who's just looking at it and doesn't have any GIS background or anything, and just wants to figure out what they need and move on. Probably they want to find out the length of a fiber from a building to the head end, so they can know what the footage is or something like that. All this field data in here is useful to somebody, but not to everybody. So some of it just becomes noise. Of course, it's all good data and it'll all be saved. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff we can clean up a little bit for the average person who's gonna look at this. And right off the bat, I would say that the best way to present this would be to have each fiber home run, so to speak, in its own folder. So you're not seeing all, you can easily turn off the other schools. So you're just going to concentrate on what you want to do. So we're going to, for the sake of this video, we're just going to concentrate on this fiber run right here. So that's what we're going to think about cleaning up. So from here in the KMZ, as we see it on Google Earth, there's really not a lot we can do, at least easily. What we really need to do is take this over and get it into a GIS program. I'm going to use QGIS, and then we can really start hammering away at this and start making some improvements. So QGIS open, the easiest thing to do is just to drag the KMZ right into the QGIS, and it's going to give you a few options here. We're going to say we're going to take them all and just add the layers. So not a lot to do. So that was quick. It loaded it in. You probably want to drop in a base map to just make sure 100% that you're geo-referenced. So Google Hybrid. Now that we see we've got a good geo-reference here, everything is lining up the way it did on the KMZ. So we can proceed with confidence that we're in good shape. Honestly, at this point, I'm just going to turn it off right here because really we just need to focus on the layers at this point. Now, back in the at the beginning of the video, I said we just wanted to concentrate on one leg of the fiber that goes back to the head end, which is right here. So what we can do, and this will help in general, kind of create chapters and move from there instead of, so you're not just looking at everything. There's nothing wrong with having chapters and turning them on and off as you need them, and kind of get rid of all the other stuff that you don't need. So what we can do is let's take a look at what we brought in here. So there's not a lot of distinction here between the two. But you do see these little dots. So that's telling us that those are what I'll call just objects, which is everything except for these, which are the routes. So everything that we see here are the routes. I should have done this way. And then everything here are the what I'm calling objects. One thing, we can't really do anything to the KMZ. So the first thing that we need to do before we do anything else is actually export this to something called a shapefile. So let's do that. So we'll come up here, we'll right click and we'll say export and then save as. And then up here, I must have been working with the last, so it remembers the last thing that you saved. So I must have been working with something and I saved it as a KML. So we're going to come up here and we're just going to look at the shapefile. And we're going to hit it, and then we'll just browse over to the location and stick it in there. So we'll come over here. Best if you create a folder named shapefiles because they're going to take up a lot because the shapefile has about 4 or 5 other files associated with them. So it's best just to keep everything in a nice little container. So we are saving right here the outside plant objects. So we will call this OSP objects. Like that, and then we'll just say okay, and then save it. And then we'll save it. At this point, we can just get rid of that. You're not deleting it off of your hard drive or anything. You're just getting it out of the QGIS. Now let's just do the same for this one. So we'll come over here and then we'll say export and then save feature as, just like we did before. Remember where we're at. And we'll come over here and so we'll say OSP routes. Okay. Now, back to where I had originally started or saying is that we want to get rid of everything in here. Now that we have it in the shapefile format, we can easily get rid of what we don't need at this very second. I happen to know that this right here, and we can turn this back on, make our life a little bit easier. Is, and then you can kind of come over here and make this something. Get these format that we can actually see here. So let's say all symbols. And then come down here, grab something that will just pop out like the yellow, like that. There we go. All right, so now we can see our fiber a lot better. And so this is the only one that I'm interested in at this point. So everything else we can get rid of. So we will select that, the name of the routes, and then we'll do this, and then we'll just come along and just start grabbing things. You know what? I'm thinking of this. Probably yellow wasn't the best color to have because that's going to be the color that it turns when we select it. So let's go back and let's grab something that's going to want to actually pop out a little bit too on that. That background. So if we did something like that, that'll pop out pretty good. And unselect it. Okay, yeah, so now we can see when we selected it, it turned. So first thing you have to do, so we're gonna edit the route, so we want to hit the pencil, and that will allow us to actually make changes. So we'll select that route right there, and all you gotta do just hit delete and it's gone. And so you are editing the shapefile at this point. So you do want to be use caution, or you're going to be importing things back in. So all I'm doing here is just getting rid of some things that we don't really want to have in here anymore because they're just going to get in the way. So now that I've got that part, I can just go easily just go grab all of these and those are done. So once you're done, save it and then take your pencil off so you don't accidentally mess with it again. Let's do the same for the objects. So now select everything here and And then we have some objects out in this area. Thinking it's probably going to be best to do like we did on the other one and actually really change these guys to something that pops out a little bit better. Maybe like this star looking thing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we can really see things a lot better. So here and start selecting them, delete. Just because we zoomed in. Then we'll get rid of these, and these guys can go. We're getting kind of close to the head end, so we'll be a little careful. All right, that's one. And that'll be good for now. So that's pretty much. I know there's some other noise in here that's not important. I'm not getting too nitpicky, but at least now we're only dealing with the to the school. That's name is Warcliffe. So right here, that's the only. So we've got it. At least now the map is down to just this one chapter, so to speak. And so, as always, go ahead and save it, and then hit your pencil. Now, the next step is we want to just take a look and see what kind of data came in from the field. So that means we want to look at our attribute tables. You can get there two ways. You can push F6 on your keyboard, or if that doesn't work, you can come down here and put open attribute table. And so we did see that we did get some data. One thing that strikes me right off the bat is we really only populated two columns. So why have all those other columns in there when they're just going to create more noise? So what we can do is edit again, come on over to this guy, and this will let you take out what you don't want. So we can get all of these, hit control, and it will allow you to select ID, and all you got to do is hit enter, and there you go. So that got rid of some of the other crap that we don't need in there anymore. So now we see in a lot of there wasn't a lot in the description column, but we're going to keep that there. But where when they did fill stuff in, it was good stuff because it was the size of the handle and things like that. So that's helpful to have. What's not quite so helpful is all these different names for guy wire. So you have side guy, you have end of line guy, you have guy in the west. So that's why usually it's best when you send people out to do field data that you have some kind of data validation set up where you have like a pick box and then it only gives you 5 things, so they can only choose guy, and then that the classify it. Then in the description they could say side guy and then in the line, because as we'll see, this will become important a little bit later, that we're gonna want things classified, because if not, we're gonna have 20 different kinds of icons explaining essentially the same thing, and you won't be able to memorize them. But if we can get this down to one kind of icon for the end of line, or not the end of line, the guy wires, then that's a lot easier to remember that I use X because it just, for no reason, it stands out on mine. So if you see an X on the plan, then that's a guy wire. And whether it's north, south, end of line, probably for the most part doesn't matter most of the time. And if it really does, then you can drill in and look at the description of it. But we're trying to think high level here. So that will be one thing that we're going to have to do. So we're going to have to, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to create a column called classification, and we'll have like 3 class, and then we'll have a classification for guy, and then you can kind of look through here and see what other things they have. School or building. So I'll probably create a classification for guys, for buildings, so whether it's a school or the head end, once again trying to keep things pretty high level here. Storage, and I think sometimes they call it slack, like slap loop. So we'll call something like a slack and maybe one other. So we'll take all 37 of these and get it down to 4 or 5 categories. So that's what we'll have to do. So we'll have to create a column, name class, and then give it a classification. So the slow way to do it would be to come along here and then look at each one of these and say, okay, this is a guy, and then put guy over here. This is a guy, okay, over here. You come across to Slack loop or something, we'll call it Slack. That would take all day, especially if we were dealing with it about total drawing. And plus, we're charging about an hour here. So we need to come up with a better way. So what we need to do is think about how we can handle this with SQL. First, you want to open up your thing right here, this field calculator, and then you're gonna create a new field name, which is we're gonna call it class, because we're classifying those names and try to get it into some kind of whittle it down to maybe 6 or 7. So classification names. This is important right here, so don't forget this step. It won't work. Is you want to come and say this is going to be text, because that's what you're creating. Now, what you're going to need to do is drop an SQL statement in, and I've already prepared that, and it is right here. I'll try to post it somewhere in a link or something where you can grab it off a shared drive, but or you could maybe just do a screen capture of this and then pull the text out using ChatGPT or something. Most things will capture text anymore, so that's the text I'm going to take. So I'm just going to copy all, and then copy, and then I'm going to come over here in this window, place it in, and then all we have to do is just say okay. And there we go. It created a column header called class, and then let's sort this through and see how well we did. So we got almost everything sorted out. So anything with guy in it is now just classified as guy. Anything with let's see, we had handhold, we had riser, vault. So most of the stuff we were really just trying to get this guy stuff figured out because they had all kinds of different names in it. So here's a couple of the ones that didn't sort, and inevitably you're probably going to have to do a few by hand. And if you're just building up a template for something you're going to work on quite often, then you don't have to do this much. But so they really didn't have like a great name. So I'm going to classify, this is the district MDF. So I'm just going to go ahead and classify it myself as a building, because that's one of our names. This is a school, and I'm going to call it a building, just to keep from having something called a building, something having a school. Once again, the whole argument of trying to simplify this as much as possible. And then finally, this, which I think is a splice, but what we can do is highlight this and then right click and then zoom to feature and see how it illuminated it right there. And that is indeed, I know, a splice right there, just because I have a knowledge of the network. And you can also see here where they say, looks like they're coming in with a 6-strand and coming out with a 12-strand. So that to me says there must be a splice there somewhere. So we'll call it splice because that was one of our categories. So there we go. We've got everything categorized. And if I didn't mention it earlier, this is very important for the next step once we get into My Maps, because it will allow you to classify the icons based on what these conditions right here, and it will go a lot faster than having to go in and individually touch each one of those icons to change them. So to show you what I mean, let me use the classification feature in QGIS. So over here, select this, and then so we can classify these based on the names. So it will give us, it'll do it for us. So we can come over here and we can say categorize, I guess is what they call it. And then what we're going to categorize on is the class that we created. And then come down here and say classify and see how it went through, and it found each one of those that we had, and it assigned it a different color. So we come down here and look, we can see it's a different color versus based on what it was. And then you can see over here, it's got the different colors. Now this is obviously a ridiculously ugly icon. So that would be the next thing that we need to zero in on. So for instance, we can go to building, and we can say that is the dumbest looking icon I've ever seen. So you can just kind of sort through here, and there's one that like looks like you can even go home, something like that. So you got the home for the building, then like guy, what I was doing was using an X because for some reason the X reminds me of guys. So that's the other thing, is you kind of want to do something that you're gonna remember. And so when you look at your map, you can see, okay, yep, that's the guy. Yep, that's a handhole. Yep, that's a building. And actually, one thing I just remembered is that you probably would make your life a lot easier if you back up. So don't classify quite yet, and come over here and just pick just any random thing for now, because that gives you a simple marker, which is going to make life a little bit easier. And then also, this is a preference, but I like to have mine meters at scale. That way they don't get, so it just sets it at that size. So make sure that that's a reasonable size for, so it's probably a little small if you're going to be looking at the map, and on average about like this. You can't really see it till you zoom in. So you can play around with this and see what 10 starts to come out. I don't really like mine getting like super big, and that's the problem when you make them. When you use that, the other ones is as you zoom out, those keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and in my opinion, it just gets annoying. So if you set it this way, you set it for how you want it before you start to classify it. Because if you don't, then you have to do this for each individual one that you classify. So it's better to do it on the front end like this. And then it also gives you a simple marker. And that star has another marker in it, so you don't have to fight that the whole time too. So now we can go back and we can go to categorize, and then we can say that we want to do it class. And then we can come up here and classify it. Which comes up, but that's kind of a bit of a bug. But anyways, now you can see. So now we can come back and see that, for instance, the buildings. So we can come over to our little icons here and even have one for buildings. So we'll do that. Okay. So that works well for me. It just kind of tells me it's a building. As I zoom in, it gets smaller, which is fine. Yeah. Actually, I don't like that. So what is it? So we do have to. Okay. I stand corrected. I thought that you didn't have to get in and tweak each one of these, but apparently you do. So, anyways, meters at scale. We'll make it about 12. Okay. So that makes it static, and you don't have to follow along with it anymore. And then the guys, I'm going to do my X. Down here, simple marking. And it's an X. And so this one, see, this one stayed meters at scale, so we don't have to mess with that one. So let's see how that. We'll hit OK, and then there's the guy right there. That works for me. Yep. So everywhere there's a guy, you may want to, since if you're gonna use the background, but violet color doesn't really contrast that well, so you can get in here and tweak, and I think to do like a light there. Still in color, make it lighter, so it really pops out against that background. So there you go. So it makes them like that. So those look good. And then I won't do all these for this video, but I'll do one more. So let's say like the handholds that would just be like a rectangle, or it's hard to find a rectangle that but you could use something like a little kind of thing like this, and then you can mess around with the fill color, make it something that contrasts well, something that pops out a little bit. And we got meters of scale, so so that shows that's our handles. Well, yep, there's a handle right there. A little hard to distinguish between that and a circle, so you may play around with that a little bit and see. And actually, truth of the matter is that if you're the only one who's going to see this QGIS file, then you don't even really have to do this classification, doing this changing the icons anyways, because really we're doing this for the KMZ that people are going to see. So, and unfortunately, these icons will not transfer over to the KMZ, so you would just have to do it anyway. So, I guess I will just leave that up to you as an exercise if you want to change all these, because maybe you are going to use this in production somewhere down the line, so it doesn't make sense. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to call it good, because we're just going to switch these over in the KMZ anyways. So preparing to send it over to Google My Maps, or potentially or Google Earth Online, kind of does the same thing. So we can look at both of those. But our goal is to get this in some kind of format that we can have a link that we can share with somebody. And if they don't even have a Google account or anything, or if they're on a phone, if they just open that link, they're going to see the finished product. And they don't have to have Google Earth, or you're not sending them something that you're going to expect them to have software on their device to run. So that's the overall goal. But to do that, first of all, see we have a little icon here saying that we haven't saved something. So we should do some housekeeping and save it, and that makes that icon go away. And then it also has a little pencil there that's saying that it's just unlocked. So just for completeness, we'll lock her back up. That now it's complete. We should hit save. And then we're going to export these as back to a KML or KMZ. Really kind of the same thing. And then so we'll say export, save feature as, and then we're going to say, I believe it's KML, isn't it? Yeah, KML. And then we'll just give it a file name and stick it somewhere safe. Save it. So this is asking you, do you want to put this right here back in your drawing, which we don't, because that's just going to add noise. So we'll just say cancel. So you didn't cancel saving it. All you did is told QGIS not to put that in here, which we don't need in our layers. And then we'll do the exact same thing for this one. Export, save as, KML, because that's the last thing we saved this. We can do this is route, and then we can see where do we want to go with it. Same thing, and then we'll say OSP. And say okay. And that's pretty much up for the QGIS part. So let's go play around with Google my maps now. Okay, here we are. So to do this part, you will need to have a Google account. It probably isn't too big of a problem for anyone. But when the finished product will create a link that somebody who does not have a Google account can access. So that's the important thing. So you're not expecting your client to have Google Earth. You're not expecting them to be able to have QGIS or even have a Google account. They can be, on some crazy XYZ browser, not logged in, dark web, whatever, and it's still going to open a link and it's still going to show you. And so that's what we're looking at right here. And so what we're going to do here is say create a new map. I'm going to create it. And then we just start here, all zoomed out. And now is where we're going to start bringing in our files. So the first layer we're going to want to bring in is we're going to say that is outside plan objects. Save. And then we're going to say import. And then we're going to save it. We're going to browse. And come over. Grab our image. And just like that, it's dropped in all the objects. And like I was alluding to earlier, you've lost all the styling. So that's why I didn't want to put a ton of time into doing it in QGIS if you were only using QGIS to get to this part. Sometimes if you're working on a big project, because this is a part of a much bigger project, and the QGIS would be my production software to use, I would probably take the time to do that because it's going to be something for me and makes it better for me to overall. So once again, that's personal preference. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to add a layer. And oops, I just wanted to, but it's easy enough to just delete that one layer. And then we'll just import it. First of all, though, we want to give it a name. So we'll call it OSP fiber. Okay. Now import just like we did before. Browse. Routes. There we go. So now we have all the route information in here as well. One thing that's nice is you can change your base map if you like to. They don't have like a ton of cool stuff in here, but they do have a few options. Probably the most different. You could do something that's contrasting if that's important. So if the route is really more important than anything else, we want it to stand out. But probably the other default, of course, is the classic satellite view, which we'll be using for this one. The other thing is to you want to give it the map a name. So we're going to call this fiber. You can give your name whatever you want, and then they can have a description. Okay. And now we can get down to some of the good stuff that is right here. What we want to do is play around with our styling. And so This will at least get our icons into the classified. So instead of going to each one of these and figuring out, oh, is this a guy? Which, by the way, you can get the information by kind of hovering over it. See how it turned white like that? Click it. So you can get the information is there. Different kinds of information. But that's really not what we want. What we want to do is have these. This is kind of what we got into when we were in QGIS. We wanted to change these icons to change them a little bit. So it's easier to tell looking at it right here if it's a guy wire, if it's a slack, if it's a handhole. So that can be done by coming up here, and we're going to say we're going to come back to our classification like this. And so we're going to classify them on class, and then our labels we're going to class. So now we can at least have a little bit of distinction that if it's a different color, we know it's a different type of object. So at this point, everything that's yellow is guide. Everything that's brown is a up here too is a slack loop. And so if you do that, it will highlight. So as you do this, it highlights everyone. So it does make it a little easier. So that's all your guide wires. If you come down here and you want to find your slack loops, you do this. There's all your slack loops and so on. What your splices are. These are probably the most important things. And that's good, helpful. But we would like to play around this a little bit more and give ourselves some icons that actually can help us make sense, and not these are kind of your traditional GIS type of dropper type of icons. We could change these. We can drill down to this a little bit more. Give us something that's a little bit easier to memorize than colors. Also, what it did, if you'll notice, is it did give it then. So we told it to label it on the class, so at least you'll know that these are slack and this is guide and stuff like that. So you do have that if you zoom in to that level. One thing that's you can't control with Google Earth ever is when you zoom out like this, you get this, everything is bigger and bigger and bigger, which can get annoying if you have lots of icons. Next thing, before we get too carried away on more talking about the icons, let's go ahead and adjust this fiber route. So this is easy enough. We want to get it out to something that we can actually see a little bit better. So do that. You can mess around with the style a little bit here. Pick so hover over all items. Do your little paint thing here. Give it because another thing about this is your color palette is only limited to what they give you here. You can't mix and match like you can in GIS. So it's kind of like a GIS light program, but it's free. So you can't complain too much. But anyways, I'm looking for the lightest possible because I really want it to pop in contrast to the background, which is probably going to be a satellite. So what we'll do is we'll do this and we'll make it a little wider like that. So now we really can see our route well. Where the lines are closer together right here, it's not as helpful. So the next step in the process is we have to come along here and assign icons that are a little bit better. And so you can see this is the big reason why, at least now we've whittled this down to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different icons instead of the however many there were originally that we had to deal with because before we classified them. So really, it's pretty easy. If you keep it down to 6 or 7, it's not that tedious. And if you can get it less, then even better. But what you do is you just pick the paint thing again, and then come over to, you can get a ton of icons by doing this. And then you pick whatever you think you're going to remember the most. Like I said, I like the X for the guys. So now I think that looks pretty good right there. So well, maybe not yellow because it blends in too much. So, but I do like those colors that pop out. But what about this color? Yeah. So, this is styling up to you and how you feel. Next thing is Slack. And so basically you just come along here and you think, look at these and think, what reminds me of a Slack loop. And so I'm going to go through these and add them all in, and then we'll take a look at what I came up with. So here's what I came up with right here so the guy, I did this little @ symbol those are Slack loops. Buildings, it does actually have a building. Splice, handhole. I did find out somehow when I classified, I did one for handhole, so I should have picked this up when I was creating my classifications earlier. So vault and handhole, at least in my logic for this drawing, are the same. So that was an error that I did in my SQL. I should have had something that picked both these up, but not a big deal because we're not dealing with a ton of them. So, and then riser. Really, realistically, probably what most people are going to care about are a few things that are probably your splices, and that's probably the biggest thing. So I try to make the splice is that's like a star, so it kind of sticks out. And there's another one. So like I said, one way to do if you're trying to find them fast is just hover it and it will give you more. So you can see, looking at this whole big picture, you can see which ones are the splices right away. And looking at, and then of course we talked about, you can just select it and you can see more details about it. One thing is I noticed that we didn't do that we should have done in the GIS is do some. So it does have some footage in here. But what I'd like to do is add the total route footage with this. So so in the description, it does have the length there, So it does have some of these do, some of them don't. Okay, so it does. So this is nice actually. I just realized this right now. So this is provided by the Google. So this was something that somebody probably did. I don't know if they looked at the footage or something on the cable or and got this somehow. But this actually is what Google is saying. So that's pretty nice. So even if they didn't update this information, you still have it here. So that's helpful to have. What I did think what would be nice is if we had one more category here that gave you the total length. So we're interested in this as thinking of this as a whole route. And so right now, the way we have loaded in, we have it in segments because that's the way it came in from the field. So we have the first segment to this splice, and then they have a splice, so that creates another segment. And then they had a riser, which had a segment, and then this handhold, where there's another splice, and that's another. So that's okay, but probably if you're here as a network person or somebody troubleshooting in the field because they say the connectivity to this building isn't working, probably you just want to know if you're going to shoot it with an OTDR, right? What's the distance between this and the head end? What is it now? And what I don't want to come in here and add all these together. I just need this information right now. So could we make it somehow so when you clicked on this and hovered over it, it just becomes one line and not a bunch of segments that you got to look at. So the answer to that is yes. So if we pop back over to QGIS, we can look at how that is done. Okay, over here in QGIS, what we said we wanted to do was add some length information to our running line here. So we'll open up the attribute table, and I'm glad we popped back here also because I also we need to do some house cleaning here that at least I like to do, and that is all these that came in from the KMZ. We don't need them, so why have them taking up space? So what we can do is making sure we're in. So we definitely want to make sure that we are in edit mode. So this is how you would normally see it. So you want to come over here, hit the pencil, and then hit this red for delete, and just pick the ones. I'll look at it carefully because once they're gone, they're gone. So everything from timestamp down, we don't need. So all you got to do is highlight, just hit enter on your keyboard, and that's it. So that took care of everything. Actually, I grabbed the description bars out, so it was a little heavy-handed. Let me go grab that. Okay, got it back. Okay, so that was a little embarrassing because I just said don't do something, then it ended up disappearing. But anyway, so if you do it, as long as you don't save it, you can get it back. So you would have to just delete the layer and then just bring it back in, and it's going to ask you before you delete it, do you want to save it? So just say no, and you should be okay. But it's not really a risk you want to take. But anyways, let's try that again. So we'll come over here, and then we only want to do there. So we stop at description. Okay, worked a lot better that time. Okay, so that cleaned that up. So back to what we wanted to do originally, which was we thought we could put a length in here, so each one of these segments would have a length, and so that's easy enough to do. You come up here to the field calculator, and you're going to want to create a new name. So we'll call it length, and then I'm just going to leave mine as a whole number because we don't need that much granularity in it. And then all you got to do is come over here and go to geometry, and then find it has to have the little dollar sign in front of it, and it's $ length, like that. And you're gonna do something if you come down here and look in this preview and it doesn't give you a null or an error or something, so it's recognizing what you're doing, and you should be good. So if we hit OK, there we go. So we have length, which is nice, but in my case, and depending on how you brought your map in, it's in meters, and I'm better with feet than meters. So why don't we go ahead and do a little conversion, and we'll do the conversion right in the length calculator. So we'll start over again. We'll just call this LEN. And then we'll do like we did. Well, actually, let's do this. Meters to feet is 3.28084, and we'll multiply that by the length. And so we come back over here to geometry, and we find the dollar sign in front of the length, and that. So looking down here, we're in good shape. Look like the math worked. So then we have that. Okay, so everything is now in feet, which to me is much better. So all we have to do is get rid of that length. We want to leave the meters in there as well, which may or may not be a bad idea. Just really up to you. So, but I'm just gonna get rid of this. So that takes care of our length. Now, another thing that we may want to do is put the total length in here. So these are all the segments, but how about all the segments added together? So that would be for the benefit, like if you're going to shoot it with no TDR, you're at the head end, and you want to see if you're going to make it all the way to the school at the other end. We could have a column, so it would be the same number for all of these. So it would be we would just populate it, so they would have it. So if you shot it with no TDR, you would know that if it's way short, then it's ending. If it's about close to the number that you put there, at least you're probably making it to the other end. So that's another thing that we can do by doing the field calculator, and then this time let's just say TOTLEN for total length, and then we'll come over here and we'll say I just happen to know that this is 11,574 feet, so I'm just going to put it in. You can do some fancy math to have it calculate those columns and stuff, but I'm just going to, just because I know the length already. So all you have to do is put the little thing here, and then 11574, and that. Look down at the bottom and see preview. Looks okay, so as long as you got the little parentheses looking things in here, you should be good, and then it will go ahead and it just populates through the whole column for you. So anytime you look at any of these attributes on the map, you click on that little segment, it's going to give you the length of the segment and then the total length. So next thing we want to do, since we are satisfied with what we have here, go ahead and commit. So once you commit like that, you can't go back because now it's changed it over in your file on your file side. So that there is no backing out from there, unless I guess the nuclear button is you could go and find the the archive if you have that ability to go back and look at different versions of it if you have like an Outlook or something like that, or Outlook OneDrive. You can get the archive version and bring it in, but even that's getting a little risky. So best just to be careful because there's not a lot of forgiveness in QGIS. To show you like what I was talking about. So we highlight it here for our outside plant routes. If we come up to this little info, we hit this, it's going to tell us the information that we just put in. So it's going to tell us the length of that segment and the total length, and you'll get that wherever you are along the route. So you just have to hit. So to clear out your selection, you just select this, and then there's another one. So it's hitting a couple of them, so it's showing double. Let's find one that's more like this area. How about this guy right here? So that's along the aerial stretch. So that's showing us that information. I don't know if this is still part of the aerial section. Yep, so that's the pretty long stretch right there. So I think we're satisfied with our little update that we did. So all we need to do as a review, like we did before, we just go ahead and export and save feature as, and then just save it as a KML. Come up here, choose KML, and then browse to your location. And just hit OK, and then it saves it to your location. This you can just cancel out. It's just asking if you want to put that layer back on the KML layer on your map, which you don't need. So it's all set. So we can come back over to My Maps and put it in. Here we are back over in My Maps, and the next step is we just need to add a layer, import, and then just drag over your OSP route. As I can find it here. There we go. So that's added in. We can just go ahead and do the styling. So let's do uniform styling like we did before. And I like to mess around with the in the color. So we come over here, all items, pick the little paint bucket, give it something nice and bright that will stick out on the map, and then make your line width a little bigger. So there we go. We can see that pretty good. And then when you click on it, you go, there we go. So we cleaned up those attributes that weren't populated, and we also added the length. So that's just the length of this segment, and then the total length. So you'll see that on every one. And then we have like this is giving us our length. This was actually some words that we didn't need to have in there, but so if we would have taken our time to clean this up a little bit better, we would have wanted to take these out from our drawing. But this shows that this is a shorter length because it's coming down from that riser over to the handhole. So that was the point I was trying to make, and then out of that handhole splice to the building. Obviously, I should have taken these out because they weren't relevant to this drawing, but because I was trying to rush through a few things. But those are little housekeeping things you need to do on a production drawing. Another pro tip here is you could, if you needed to make like a quick list for somebody, either of inventory of what's out in the field, you can just come over here and do export to CSV and then open it up, and there's no real formatting here, but at least it dumps everything out here, and you can play around with it. You would you might need if you needed to pass this along to somebody real quick, they could also get the latitude and longitude, but probably mostly you may be just interested in some of the other stuff. So that's just a quick way to get information out of your drawings if you had to do like a quick inventory list. The same thing would apply, so you could do the same thing on the OSP route as well. So you could go over here, export this, and look at the links of the cable. So it could be a quick way if you had to get some quick numbers. You can come over here and get the segment links and stuff like that. So of course, obviously, it would need some formatting, but it is available. Quick and dirty, definitely. And then probably the most important thing is what we want to do to get this over. The kind of the whole point of this video is now this is in a format where you can just go ahead and share it out by going over to share and sharing it like this. And then you definitely want to make sure you have this part. Anyone with a link can view. So, and then you go ahead and just go ahead and click that link. And just to prove that I'm in, I'm in incognito mode out of Google, nothing's logged in or anything. So this could be like somebody out in the field who's just on a browser that doesn't have, don't have a Google account or anything. I place that link in, and there you go. So it works independent of browser or anything. So now you've just given the person a KMZ map here with all the good stuff on it, so they can come along. They can click on. You got it. It's really sensitive, but you got to slowly go over it when it goes to the little pointer where you click on it, and there you go. It will give them the attributes. And also you can open this up on your phone, which is actually I use it quite often. Just have the link available, and then I can be out in the field, open this up on my phone, and see what I need to see. So I do hope that was helpful for you, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot for watching.